Well, good afternoon and welcome to Women in Ag Wednesday. As usual, we always have something different, something hot, something unique, and just something with the women's touch on it. Today I have live this queen. This is my friend, you guys. When I say boss moves, making those boss moves, making that bag and ag, this is Miss Louisa. Louisa, I'm going to have you introduce yourself. And tell what you do and who you are, because no one can tell like you can.
Okay. Well, I'm so glad to be here, first of all, Tiffany.
Thank you.
The incredible operation we have here. I'm really honored to be your guest over your show today and just to get to know you now and in the future. So my name is Louisa McCune, and I'm Executive Director of Kirkpatrick Foundation, which is the Oklahoma City philanthropy, started in 1955 by John and Eleanor Kirkpatrick. So we are a funder. That's our primary business. We fund arts, culture, education, animal well-being, environmental conservation, and historic preservation in central Oklahoma. And that means that we respond to 501c3 public charity grant applications to our private foundation. So that's our primary business. I'm the director there. We have great staff. We also have a couple of our own initiatives, and by initiatives, I mean programs. And both of them are 10 years old. So one is a contemporary arts magazine called Art Desk, and we do 4 issues a year of our contemporary art magazine. And then we have a 20-year initiative. We're 10 years into our 20-year initiative called Safe and Humane.
Okay.
And that's where it's an animal protection initiative, so that's where I like to say if it's got 4 legs, wings, or gills, and it's in the state of Oklahoma, we're working on it. So that can be cats or dogs, wildlife, or farm animals. So those are, any given day, I'm juggling grants, projects, grant funding with our program officer in that department, or the magazine, or animal protection efforts.
Wow.
That was a long answer to your
That is a long answer, but that's a great answer because I didn't even know half of that.
Okay.
That Kirkpatrick actually offered. So I want to kind of just back up and talk about a couple of your programs specifically that relates to our organization, as well as any female organization that's in agriculture, any female, I should say. When you speak about environmental, can you speak to me like what type of things do you do with the environment?
Yeah. So let me back up here. So our animal protection work, which we say animal well-being, and environmental conservation work sometimes intersect.
Most definitely.
And so in terms of environmental conservation funding, we do a lot with the Nature Conservancy or smaller groups in terms of testing water or programmatic efforts with a group called Save the Illinois River, Eastern Oklahoma, Spring Creek Guardians, lead agencies. So we will work with these groups, large and small, to really kind of have a hyper-local approach to conservation efforts in their area. And when we say conservation, we mean very different than beautification.
Right, most definitely.
Beautification might be planting trees here in downtown Oklahoma City.
No.
That's not what we do. Our conservation work is about protecting the natural
conservation.
Natural conservation.
Awesome.
And so then animal work sometimes dovetails very much into that.
That's their habitat.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's their habitat. I get it.
Well said.
So as far as when you say like the environment, you all work with any climate control issues?
Well, we're starting to.
Okay.
And some of our grantees are very much in that realm of climate change, climate issues. So we typically respond to those inquiries as a grant maker.
Okay.
So we're not aggressively working on climate change issues. Our partners are, our grantee partners are doing that.
Okay.
So our programmatic work is really leadership in animal protection and contemporary arts publishing.
Okay, contemporary arts. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so contemporary art. So, and I think one thing that's going to be important for you and me to talk about today is our work in farm animal protection.
Most
Given
definitely.
your agriculture background, so I've spent a lot of time working on that, and I want to talk about that.
Okay.
And what's going on in Oklahoma as a result of years of policy efforts that are maybe failed policy,
Gotcha.
and and also just the landscape of animals and agriculture today. But first, contemporary arts publishing.
Yes.
So most people know Kirkpatrick Foundation for our arts funding.
Mhm.
So when you look around Oklahoma City, you see the leadership of our founder, John and Albert Kirkpatrick.
Mhm.
They started Oklahoma City Museum of Art. They started Oklahoma City Ballet. They started Omniplex, now
Okay.
Science Museum of Oklahoma. In 1965, John Kirkpatrick started Oklahoma Zoological Society, which
Zoo.
supports the zoo. The zoo is a city zoo, but the OZS, or is also known as Zoo Friends,
Mhm.
is the Friends group, the 501c3 Friends fundraising arm. So Kirkpatrick Auditorium, OCU. I mean, there's just so many cultural institutions that have been founded by Kirkpatrick Foundation or our sister philanthropy, Kirkpatrick Family Fund. Kirkpatrick Family Fund, led by Liz Heichman, really started, and its chairman, Christian Cassie, started something called City Arts Center about 33 years ago. In fact, Chris Cassie is the founder.
Mm.
So about 12 years ago, we undertook the effort to move City Arts Center, which was at Oklahoma State Fairgrounds, to downtown Oklahoma City at 11th and Broadway.
Okay.
So when that planning got underway at Kirkpatrick Foundation, we launched a magazine called Art Desk, which we print about 88,000 copies of each issue. So we have to do the math in my head, but let's call it 350,000 or so. The math is wrong on that.
That's fine. That's fine.
But we're printing a lot of magazines and we're distributing a lot of magazines 4 times a year. So our magazine is sort of hyper local and hyper global in its content. Okay, so I'm on a deadline for it right now.
Wow, you're responsible for that also?
Oh yeah, yeah, right.
You're hard.
Yeah, well, my background's in publishing,
Right,
so that's kind of what my go-to skill set is. So we print the magazine, we insert into the Daily Oklahoman. We insert another 35,000 copies or so in the New York Times. So that is all through Oklahoma, North Texas, Albuquerque, Santa Fe, Denver to Colorado Springs. So we're and in the Houston area. So we're blitzing our magazine regionally in 2 different, in the Oklahoma.
In the arts industry.
In the arts.
Okay.
So that's all about the arts. We always cover animals
Okay.
in Art Desk.
I love it.
But so that's a way of really educating. It's an arts education tool.
Most
Art Desk.
definitely.
Yeah.
Most definitely.
Great magazine. Readartdesk.com. And so I should have brought some copies.
I know, I definitely have some copies here. This is awesome.
We'll bring you a box and you can give them away.
Thank you.
And then at some point we'll write about you. So, so we're, content's the easy part. It's important how we get the magazine out to our audiences. So I think really important for the National Women in Agriculture Association and your leadership is just understanding, about farm animals. So in Oklahoma, for example, we have 220 million farm animals in our state that are annually raised and slaughtered for food.
That way, right there, you said 220 million
220
farm animals.
million farm animals
Wow.
are raised and slaughtered for food in Oklahoma.
Wow.
That number is
Raised and
9
slaughtered.
billion in the United States annually. So
Wow.
9 billion annually.
Y'all check out these numbers. You see how sharp she is.
Yeah, it's a lot of animals.
A lot of
A
animals.
lot of animals. And so we don't have a vegan agenda. I'm not,
Right.
everyone's like, they have a vegan agenda. We do not have a vegan agenda.
Exactly.
But I will tell you that mitigating the suffering of those animals is a high priority. And so let's just look at those animals. So 220 million farm animals. The vast majority of those are broiler chickens, okay? So these are the ones that people are eating,
Right.
broiler chickens. Of that big population, 1.9% of that 220 million, or about 4 million animals, are living their entire adolescent and adult lives in extreme confinement, in CAFOs. CAFOs, C-A-F-O, confined animal feeding operations. So that's a term,
Okay.
confined animal feeding operations. And so those 4 million or so animals in Oklahoma annually are breeding sound mother pigs, right? These are not the market pigs.
Right.
These are the mother pigs that
The female pigs.
The female pigs.
Yes.
They're pink.
Exactly, they're pink.
They're
Yes.
pink. They are in what are called gestation crates for the duration of their pregnancy, and then they are moved into farrowing crates. After they've weaned their litter, they're moved back into gestation crates, and so therefore their lives are entirely spent in these 2 feet by 6.6 feet long crates. It's really the worst of the worst.
Could you imagine just, and it's concrete flooring,
Concrete flooring, there's no bedding, there's no hay.
and they're in this little chute, basically.
They're in this tiny little
Cakos.
crate. Yeah, it's called a gestation crate.
Mhm.
And so one person recently likened it to living your entire life in an airline seat. And of course, giving birth, being pregnant and giving birth repeatedly in that airline seat.
Wow.
So it's really kind of puts a visual to it. So the other 3.5 million or so of these animals are egg-laying hens. And so these hens are in battery cages that are about the size, they have the footprint of about the size of an iPad in which to live their entire lives. And so
Wow.
they're not able to extend their wings. And so we really don't like what's going on with this narrow sliver of
It's cruelty.
it's cruelty. It's cruelty.
Ugh.
So, and by the way, they're all female. So 100% of the animals that are in these kinds of confinement systems are 100% female. So that's
Imagine
irritating, just as a feminist.
Just as a feminist,
That's
you know, 'cause
irritating.
I understand it.
Right?
Yeah, we have to go through all the
Right.
roads of life.
Yeah, so that's a problem right here. So then also in Oklahoma, so Oklahoma started in 1907. In our territorial days, Oklahoma Territory, 1904, Oklahoma actually led the nation, Oklahoma Territory and Pennsylvania led the nation in the humane treatment of animals, right? So we actually, in our DNA, in our
That's
founding
who we
DNA
are.
as Oklahomans, it's who we are. It was required by territorial statute and then later state statute that schools were required to teach humane education about the lives of animals, their habits, their needs, in the economy of nature, not the economy of the pork industry,
Right.
in the economy of nature.
Nature.
To teach that to school kids in the Oklahoma Territory and then later in Oklahoma, the state of Oklahoma. And if they didn't, by 1920, they were penalized by the Department of Education by withholding teacher salaries and withholding funding from schools. So when we discovered that research in the annals of American history, we really felt like this was sort of a holy grail for us at Kirkpatrick Foundation, that humane treatment of animals, humane education was an original priority of our founders. So that has changed through the years.
I would say so. I didn't even know it was part of our
Most
actual
people don't.
history education.
Yeah, it's a really wonderful. In fact, I co-authored a piece last year with Bob Blackburn, longtime leader of the Oklahoma Historical Society. He was not aware of that, so he was really excited when I shared with him these old PDFs from our old state statutes. But so he and I wrote a piece with a philosopher about Oklahoma's really landmark history of humane education. So nowadays, so in 1991, so Oklahoma became a state in 1907, as I said, in the populism era of American history. We had a very populist constitution, really governed by the people, really created by the people for the people.
Right.
And I keep hitting your table here.
You are fine.
Sorry,
You are fine.
here. And so in that early formation of Oklahoma, we had a very anti-corporate farming law. Anti-corporate farming. Farmers had to be individuals, okay? So that, you couldn't have a gigantic corporation come in and own farms. So in 1991, so by 1969, by 1975, those statutes
We were just coming out.
are eroding.
Yeah.
I was born in 1970.
Okay.
So by 1991, a watershed moment happened in Oklahoma state statutes, and that is when our legislature voted to make sweeping exemptions to our anti-corporate farming laws for swine and poultry.
Oh, wow.
Swine and poultry.
So that's when the big companies get to come in.
Right, like I think it was within 24 hours.
Wow.
Pig Improvement Corporation, now known as Seaboard Farms, announced their gigantic facility up in Guidon, Oklahoma. Which is, 6 hour, I don't know what the drive is, but it's a lot, it's far from that.
Guidon is far.
It's far from Oklahoma City, it's far from any metropolis.
Yes.
And, under the sort of promise and pledge that it was gonna provide all these great jobs. Well, a lot ensued in the 1990s with regard to the hog farms and the proliferation of hog farms in northwest Oklahoma. And Governor Keating worked to create a task force that implemented standards by which the hog waste would be handled, lagoons, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's a deeper history that we have time for today. But that moment, 1991, was really a crossroads for Oklahoma and Oklahoma agriculture.
Especially in
1991.
91 is when
That was a turning point. It was a turning point. So also, I think it's real important about Oklahoma agriculture to know right now is that Oklahoma leads the nation in a couple things. In 2021, Oklahoma led the nation in the rise of foreign-owned agriculture land in Oklahoma. Okay, so that's, wow, really?
Right.
Wow. So that started that rise of foreign-owned agricultural land of Oklahoma farmland started in 2004.
Okay.
So really from 2004 to 2018, it just went 1,200% increase.
Wow.
Over, what is that, 16 years? And then from 2018 to 2020, it doubled.
In 2 years?
In 2 years, it doubled. It doubled.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So initially, it included animal agriculture. I think it was already a radical rise of 1,200% increase, and then it doubled, and that was probably most likely related to medical marijuana farms.
Yeah, of course.
So, but the rise, everyone likes to point to medical marijuana as
Right.
the boogeyman here, but it was really it
In
was
the swine
really
industry.
it was really swine.
Poultry.
Poultry and some other areas too. And those owners are, those foreign nationals are from Canada, Mexico, China, Brazil,
Wow.
Italy.
And they all
and
come in
France.
here to run their operations.
They run their operations. So there's something, and there's some people who are much smarter than I am who can come and speak to you about extractive wealth. So this is, all right.
I would love
all right, I can connect.
Ooh, I love that, because I know people that with that extractive wealth. That would be a great topic.
Right, extractive wealth. And so I work alongside Mike Callicrate, who was at our conference last week. We can talk about our conference last week.
It was phenomenal. I love it.
Thank you. I would like to talk about our conference.
Okay, so definitely.
But Mike Callicrate, who was one of our keynote speakers, he's the nationwide expert on these market economics in agriculture. And so market concentration, this is where we start talking about monopolies and oligopolies. And antitrust and anti-competitions, where the Department of Justice gets involved.
Okay.
Right, so these are big issues that involve policymakers and economists and education, and just because it's complicated and then it's not complicated.
Right.
Exactly. But it takes time to learn these things and understand what's really going on in rural America, rural Oklahoma, and how real farmers and ranchers are actually in trouble.
Yeah.
They're in trouble.
Yeah.
And
my family's one of them, so I can attest
so
to
you've
that.
seen it.
Yeah, I've seen it firsthand.
You've seen it. So when you have foreign ownership or foreign, they're not necessarily giving back to the community.
No,
Right.
Taking from them.
Right. That's where extractive wealth becomes a really important concept to understand, and how that impacts communities like Guyman or Holton.
Did you see that as also a misuse of power in some way? Like people of power that could actually help change this, that it's a misuse of power one way or the other. That's where I'm going.
I mean, yes, I would say most definitely that, there are policymakers who are marching under the banner of feeding the world. Oklahoma's going to feed the world. When really, and that sounds so romantic. And Oklahoma agriculture sounds like such a romantic and noble endeavor. But it's really, you'd be dazzled by how bad policy will have devastating effects downstream.
Yes.
Right? And,
Yes.
and I would say also being a cheap date. Like, you don't want to sell your soul, right?
Yes.
For
I like the way you said that, a cheap date. That analogy is great.
So it's concerning. It's concerning, and I don't have
For our farmers.
For our farmers, and I can come on here and kind of give you the big picture, but it takes a whole ecosystem of experts to really start to educate, and you can start saying the same things over and over and over again. But for me as an animal advocate, the animal is the canary in the coal mine. Where animals, this is my mantra, where animals are doing well, so are the people.
That's it.
Where
That's
animals
exactly
are
right.
not doing well, neither are the people.
Well, that goes to show you. I always say our food system really sets the tone of who we are as a human or as people on this earth. And our food has become so toxic, and that's the best way to put it. I mean, that's from hormones to those conditions that, animals are in. So what do we have walking around and doing now? We have so many killings, we have a lot of drug abuse, you have gang violence. Again, I think it goes back to our food system.
I think you could always draw it back to that.
Antibiotics,
Antibiotics,
all that. What about listening panels with the agriculture committees as far as these experts? I'm one of those that really believe in getting things in front of the right people that can make change solution. So as far as our organization, I would like to actually, all of you that are listening, and then if you care about animals and the welfare of animals, and you hear it from an expert who actually have years and years and years of it, investment and charitable work that's done on behalf of human beings as well as our animal and our food system, I would like for you all to some way join us to just go do a listening panel, especially right here in Oklahoma before the agriculture committee. So we could hear and also support and display the conditions that these animals are being used in. I call it usage because it's being used or enslaved, however, the inhumane is the correct term for it. But I think, and going back to the basics, as you said, even in the schools, again, teaching what is really humane and what is inhumane is so important, even in our schools. So that's kind of like an education committee that brought me to that, as well as the agriculture committee.
I think it's so important to level up what you're saying. The work last week we hosted a conference that had about 85 to 100 attendees,
Wonderful.
and that we did put ads in the local newspaper, and we drummed up attendance that way. And there were some key people in the room, including former Attorney General Drew Edmondson, who continues to be a courageous leader in these issues, both when he was a 4-term Oklahoma Attorney General and as a private citizen and private attorney. But getting a nonpartisan, I'm going to talk about this too, getting a nonpartisan public education opportunity to be in front of elected officials is never a bad thing. It's always a good thing.
I would love to be a champion of that.
Well, thank you. And I would love to work with you on bringing these issues. And I think the photography alone explains, you can see an image of a gestating sow pig in a crate, and it speaks for itself.
Yeah, we're going to try to include those photographs
Okay,
and show them in part of the talk show, so the people in the audience, you all can see at your conference. And then you ended it with having a live pic there, which was just great. But when we saw that the emotions, especially being a female, the females that I was sitting at the table with literally were in tears because we got to see firsthand, on the videos that the actual conditions. And like you said, I compare myself sitting in an airplane seat. I mean, I'm claustrophobic to the point when I'm sitting even on the window side, it's just that air, I can't do this. So I always have to sit on the out because I just can't handle it. So I couldn't imagine, giving birth there as these animals are. That analogy really puts things in perspective. That's what's going on in our ecosystem.
Yeah, and the animals, really demonstrate, and when they're initially put into these crates, and for a breeding sow pig, she's in there for probably about 3.5 years total.
Her whole life.
Her whole life, yeah. Normally at 6 months, a market pig would be sent out to slaughter. But really, she's in there just litter after litter after litter, truly until her body is worn out and exhausted. At which point, she then goes into the slaughter step of the whole cycle and becomes sausage. So, so the behaviors, when she initially goes into that gestation crate, she's fighting to get out. She's chewing at the bars.
I saw that one with the chewing on the bars.
Chewing the, they're it's a lot.
They're stressed and just
they're really stressed. By the end of that, their life cycle, by that last litter, they are so despondent that they don't even respond to pain.
So you have to excuse me because that's just I've been to one of those places. So but to hear, I never knew that's what was happening. That 3 years. I mean, just and they become pregnant every 4 months, isn't it?
I think that's what that's what our biologist or veterinarian was saying. So I think it's up to, is it 3 litters a year? So and then they can. The reason that pigs are so abused in this system is because they are such prolific producers of piglets. And Oklahoma, I think we're 5th in the nation. I might have these numbers transposed, but we're 5th in the nation for sow production, and I think 7th in the nation for piglet production. So, the real farmers, real pig farmers, don't do this.
No.
Right? They have pasture raised pigs.
That's what our pigs used to do.
Yeah.
But when that big company came in, my family could no longer raise pigs because it's due to like environmental issues, the disease control, if you will, between the distance that pigs, the actual big company, if you will, where the big raising pens were and all the, and like I said, I've been there because as we say, up the road from my family farmhouse, and it took over my family's pig business where they couldn't have pigs. Yeah, it's.
I want to visit.
Yes,
and I want to understand that chain of events.
Oh, it's horrible. I mean, I remember just as a kid, as you speaking of that, all of our kids used to run around, and still, like I think we have maybe 1 or 2, but we just weren't able to raise them anymore because the laws would not allow. And big company came down. And it's like, look, you can't have these because this is gonna. I mean, if your pig gets an infection, it's gonna cause a whole big operation up there to be infected. That's money. So who wins?
In fact, I think there's a new. Okay, so some required reading. So there's a new book that's just come out by a writer named Corbin Addison about a massive lawsuit that was brought in North Carolina against the North Carolina hog industry, against Smithfield. By the way, Smithfield, just FYI, is a Chinese-owned company. So 1 out of 4 hogs in the United States is owned by China-based Smithfield.
That's enough for you right there, you guys.
Right.
Oh, wow.
So I think that book called Wasteland by Corbin Addison is currently being converted into a movie, either a documentary or a dramatized film called The Smell of Money.
Ooh, I love it.
So this is big business. These are big issues. They're complicated, and I think just getting the facts laid out in front of garden variety audiences can be a game changer. And that's what I think we're hoping to do. We would like to see the end of extreme confinement of farm animals in Oklahoma, period, end of story.
We have.
This is not animal welfare. It's not even close to it.
Wow.
So that's those are some of the issues that we're working on.
Well, listen, I can't even thank you enough. I can't thank God enough for even introducing us, because this knowledge if you will, this save lives in a holistic manner, especially with our local farmers, and future farmers. Because I tell people, part of our organization's main mission is to develop or bring more new farmers to the industry. Because again, if we have no food and the environment isn't right, we're not on earth. I mean, people will start dying in record numbers, crime will go up. So it's so important that people like you, leaders like you, and a female leader, like I tell you guys, fierce, educating for
ourselves, and I'm learning every day.
Oh my goodness, you just don't know. This knowledge it opened my eyes in a whole different view of agriculture. This is more of an agriculture extension that has to be addressed immediately. I mean, when I say immediately, you would see our organization, National Women in Agriculture, we do plan to step forward to help with the cruelty to animals. Any of you are welcome to weigh in, email us. My assistant is going to take the time also to put Ms. Louisa's contact information where you could contact her if you want to be a part of this advocacy team, and I'm calling it advocacy, because I would love to develop a coalition of people and farmers who are interested to put a stop to this inhumane treatment of animals. And with your permission,
absolutely. Please, put my email, phone number, our website. I think one of the things that's important to understand is what's happening at a national level. So 14 states have banned this type of confinement of farm animals. So whether it's field cattle, egg-laying hens, or gestating sow pigs. And those were production bans, so bans on producing like this. The state of California and the state of Massachusetts did a second, sort of ratcheted the pressure up and did a second law passed by voters on creating a sales ban. So not only could you not raise animals in that fashion in California, you can't raise animals outside of California and sell to producers, to retailers in California or wholesalers. Well, that case was challenged by the National Pork Producers Council based in Iowa. At a district level, it was upheld. Then it was upheld at the appellate court, and then the United States Supreme Court.
It went all the way to the Supreme. Wow.
And it was heard, oral arguments were heard last fall.
Oh, wow.
And there's going to be a decision coming down in the next probably 4 weeks, or possibly as late as the summer. One of three things is going to happen. They're either going to uphold the California law, they're going to overturn the California law, or they're actually going to this is what I think they're going to do. If I was a betting woman, or the third option is that they will remand the case back to California for a trial, because there was never a trial. And so that's what could ultimately end up happening is that it's remanded back to California for an actual trial. So, every farm animal advocate in the world is watching the United States Supreme Court right now.
Would that govern even our state laws?
It would govern not our state laws. It would govern producers in Oklahoma who want to sell to California.
Okay, I got you.
So the big two producers and their farmers, the biggest two in Oklahoma are probably, or definitely, is Seaboard Farms based in Gunman and Hanover, which has a major headquarters outpost in Enid, my hometown, by the way. I'm from Enid. I'm from Enid, born and raised in Enid, Oklahoma. And I'm a farmer. My siblings and I own a farm in Missouri.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so that's been in our family since the probably 1870s.
Wow.
Yeah, so our grandfather was born there. Anyway, so we've been there for a long time.
Intertwined.
They do, don't they?
I keep thinking, like she came from a farm. We both worked in New York and did the whole, and then we moved back to Oklahoma, and now we're full circle. We're working on our family.
And I want to say that I did not grow up on a farm, but my ancestors did. But I now own it with my siblings.
Full circle.
Yeah, full circle, and we're considered absentee farmers. But we take it very seriously, and we just rewrote some of the lease language for our tenants, and we don't allow hunting anymore on our farmland. Some of it has trees and little hills, and so we've decided to not permit the hunting of animals on there anymore. So
Yeah.
pleased that we're taking care of the wildlife.
Environmental, yeah,
yeah.
about that conservation thing, that, again, seeing the
Exactly.
conservation, natural.
But I would love to hear from your audience, and
Oh,
you and I will of course stay in touch. We're 10 minutes from each other.
I'm so excited
offices
about our
and-
new partnership. We collaborated, but I consider us now partners, you all. Again, you heard it from the Kirkpatrick Executive Director, Miss
Louisa McCune.
Louisa
McCune, it's a mouthful.
Yeah.
Too many syllables.
I would say Louisa. My girl. I always tell my sisters, you know my girl from Kirkpatrick. You guys, again, as you can see, women in the spotlight, on the forefront, and making things happen from a national as well as a state and local presence to help all farmers, and especially our small farmers. I mean, you have an organization like Kirkpatrick, which has a huge footprint, as you can see, and a long, long history of serving in the community. They're taking us and getting us back to our roots and making sure our children grow up to be decent human beings, as well as understand the importance of our food system. So you guys heard it live, always on Women in Ag Wednesday. We bring you the raw, the truth, trying to make a difference. And again, as I always tell you, it's a great day in ag to make that bag. So have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you for being a friend.